Hey everyone, ready to explore? We're taking a deep dive into Tokyo today.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, we got this travel podcast episode someone sent in, and
Oh, cool.
they just went all over Tokyo, and
Yeah.
they had so many stories, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of pull out some highlights.
Awesome.
You got the must-sees, the, cultural things to pay attention to,
Yeah, definitely.
and some of the practical tips to actually make it an amazing trip.
I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, me too. So one thing that struck me right away
Mm-hmm.
was this constant back and forth they talked about between, ultra-modern Tokyo
Right.
and then the traditional stuff.
Yeah, like you can be in the middle of Shibuya
Oh, yeah.
with all the neon lights and then
Sure,
turn a
it's-
corner and you're in a peaceful temple.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
Like that contrast, they said, is kind of what defines the city.
Absolutely. That's what makes it so unique.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And you think about Shibuya Crossing, that's got to be the busiest intersection in the world.
Yeah, a sea of people.
It's crazy.
Hmm.
But then, right nearby, there's that Hachiko statue.
Oh, yeah, the loyal dog.
Everyone knows that story.
Yeah.
And it just shows how Tokyo has all these layers,
Yeah, that history, that sentimentality.
all mixed in with, the modern rush. It's more than just a big city,
Absolutely. And that complexity is what gives Tokyo its character, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too.
And whether you're into tech or food or history or even fashion.
Oh, yeah, there's something there for everyone.
Exactly.
I mean, speaking of food, these podcast hosts were raving.
Oh,
The food scene.
Tokyo's a foodie paradise.
Did you know there are over 230 Michelin-starred restaurants in Tokyo alone?
Wow, that's incredible.
That's crazy, right? And they talked about everything from, the freshest sushi
Oh, at Tsukiji Market?
at the Tsukiji Fish Market to, those super elaborate kaiseki meals.
It's mind-blowing.
It really is. And they talked about Tsukiji Fish Market as, representing, a deeper thing about Japanese culture.
Oh,
Like their respect for the ocean and the art of preparing, seafood.
so the whole experience, not just a meal.
Yeah, it's not just like grabbing a bite. Now, I did think it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They mentioned that Tsukiji, it moved a few years ago.
Oh, right?
It's not in the same spot, but it's still the place to go
Yeah, for that energy.
for that early morning crazy energy and incredible food.
It's got to be amazing to see.
Oh, I know. And actually, speaking of Tsukiji,
Yeah.
the podcast hosts, they had this hilarious story about how
Oh, no.
they were trying to get there early for the tuna auction,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But they got completely turned around,
Oh, no.
and they ended up wandering into a cooking class at 5 a.m.
What?
Can you imagine?
I can only imagine the look on the chef's faces.
I know, right? But, they said it was one of their favorite memories
Oh, of course.
because it was so unexpected.
Those are the best travel moments.
I know. It just shows that those detours can be the best part of the trip.
Absolutely. It's all about embracing spontaneity.
Totally.
Yeah.
Even if you have, your itinerary planned out.
Yeah, you got to be open to those unexpected adventures.
Exactly.
If.
And speaking of detours, they talked about how even in a massive city like Tokyo,
Mm-hmm.
they found these amazing places to escape.
Yeah, like a little pockets of peace.
Yeah, like Ueno Park, for example.
Oh, I mean, Park's amazing.
It's more than just green space.
Yeah, so much more.
It's got museums, shrines, ponds.
Even a zoo, I think.
Yeah, they have a zoo. It's like a microcosm of Tokyo itself.
It really is.
All packed into this park.
And it shows how much the Japanese value incorporating nature into their cities.
Yeah, it's not just escaping the city.
Right.
It's like making nature a part of daily life.
Exactly.
That's so cool. And they also mentioned Meiji Shrine and Shinjuku-gyoen National Garden as really tranquil spots.
Oh, those are beautiful.
This one's unique,
Definitely.
Like Meiji Shrine, it's dedicated to Emperor Meiji and Empress Shokin.
Right.
So you get a glimpse into Japan's history there.
Yeah, and Shinjuku-gyoen, that's a blend of Japanese and European garden styles.
Yeah, it's so interesting how those green spaces kind of reflect different parts of Tokyo's identity.
It's fascinating.
It really is. Now, they also dove into some cultural and historical must-sees.
Like what?
Well, they talked about the Edo Tokyo Museum.
Oh, yeah, that chronicles the city's history, right?
Yeah, the city's evolution over time.
It's amazing how much Tokyo has changed and adapted over the centuries.
I know, right? And then there's the National Museum for, traditional Japanese art.
Beautiful artwork.
Yeah, and the Mori Art Museum for more contemporary stuff.
It's great that they have spaces dedicated to both.
Yeah, it shows that Tokyo's really embracing both its past and its present,
Definitely. It's a city that honors its heritage while also pushing artistic boundaries.
It is. And they had this one story about being at the Meiji Shrine.
Yeah.
and they witnessed a traditional wedding ceremony.
Oh, wow.
They said the bride and groom were in these incredible kimonos. It was a whole procession and everything. They said it was so beautiful, but it also made them think about being respectful
Oh, yeah, of course.
of local customs, even when you're just visiting.
It's so important to be mindful of those cultural differences.
It really is. And then, of course, there's the shopping,
Oh, Tokyo's a shopper's paradise.
like Ginza, for instance.
Yeah,
They
Ginza.
said it's full of high-end boutiques, department stores.
And Kabukiza Theater.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They have a kabuki theater there.
Ginza is definitely Tokyo's glamorous side.
Yeah, the luxury, the craftsmanship.
It's beautiful.
It is. And then total opposite, they talked about Harajuku and Takashita Street.
Oh, yeah, that's like youth culture central.
Right. It's all about, like, expressing yourself.
The fashion, the quirky shops.
And then for anyone who's into tech, Akihabara is the place to be.
Oh, yeah, Akihabara, it's like an electronics wonderland.
They described it as an electronics district that's
It's
also...
an anime and manga heaven.
Yes. And they even shared a funny story about visiting a maid cafe there.
Oh, the maid cafes. That's such a unique part of Japanese pop culture.
I know, right? It's so interesting how Tokyo can have all of these different things,
Exactly.
all these different sides to it.
Definitely. It caters to such a wide range of interests.
It really does.
Yeah.
But okay, with a city that massive,
Yeah,
how do you even get around?
that's a good question.
Well, the podcast hosts were saying that the public transportation is amazing.
Really efficient.
Yeah, they have these subways and train networks that are super clean,
On time, too, I hear.
always on time,
Hmm.
which in a city that big,
That's crucial.
it's got to be key, right? You
Definitely.
got to keep things moving.
Absolutely. A reliable public transportation system makes exploring so much easier.
Right, you don't have to worry about traffic or parking.
Exactly.
But they did tell this funny story about getting lost in the Tokyo subway during rush hour.
Oh, no, I can't even imagine.
Can you imagine the crowds?
It must have been overwhelming.
It's a good reminder to be prepared, even with the best laid plans.
Totally. Sometimes the unexpected detours are part of the fun.
Yeah, you got to embrace those moments.
Absolutely.
So let's get practical for a minute.
Okay.
The podcast really emphasized getting a Suica or Pasmo card.
Those are like the travel cards, right?
Yeah, they're basically reloadable smart cards
Smart.
to make traveling on public transport super easy.
It's like a must-have for navigating the city.
And they said using transit apps like Japan Transit Planner or even just Google Maps
Oh, yeah, those are helpful.
is really important for figuring out those routes because it can get complicated.
I bet. Those apps can be lifesavers, especially for first-time visitors.
For sure. And it gives you that sense of independence,
Totally. You can explore at your own pace and really maximize your time.
Exactly. Now, they also point out that convenience stores
The convenience stores in Japan are amazing, I hear.
in Tokyo, they said, they're awesome for grabbing a quick, affordable meal.
And I hear the food is actually good quality.
Yeah, that's what they said. And they also mentioned that there are tons of free attractions.
Oh, cool. Like what?
Well, they talked about the observation decks at the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building.
Those offer amazing views.
Yeah, great views of the city. And then, of course, just exploring temples and parks.
Those are free, too.
Yeah, they're free. It's just a good reminder that you don't have to break the bank.
Right. You can experience so much without spending a fortune.
Exactly. And when it comes to booking a hotel, they recommended staying near a major train station.
Makes sense for easy access to everything.
Yeah, for getting around easily. And one thing they really stressed
Mm-hmm.
was that cash is still king in Tokyo.
Oh, interesting. Even in such a technologically advanced city.
Yeah, especially at smaller places, they said you really need to have yen on hand.
Good to know.
Yeah, it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little about the cultural nuances,
Okay.
like bowing, for instance.
Yeah, bowing is a big part of Japanese culture, right?
Yeah, it's how you greet people, show respect.
It's a sign of politeness and humility.
Yeah, it's deeply ingrained in their culture. And then there's this concept called omotenashi.
I've heard of that.
It's like beyond Western ideas of hospitality.
It's about anticipating needs, going above and beyond to make guests feel welcome.
Yeah, it's about making people feel comfortable and cared for.
It sounds lovely.
It really does. They also highlighted trying sushi and tempura
Oh, those are must-tries.
as like must-do culinary experiences.
I can't wait to try authentic Japanese sushi.
Yeah, and they described the tea ceremony as being all about mindfulness
Oh, the tea ceremony. It's a very traditional and ritualistic experience.
and being present in the moment, which I thought sounded incredibly peaceful.
Yeah, it's all about harmony, respect, and tranquility.
It sounds like a great way to kind of escape the chaos of the city for a bit.
Yeah, a moment of zen.
And then we can't forget about Matsuri, which are Tokyo's festivals.
Oh, the festivals. Those are supposed to be amazing.
Yeah, they're like huge celebrations with parades and music and dance and food.
The Sanjo Matsuri in Asakusa is one of the most famous.
Right. It sounds like a sensory overload in the best way possible.
It's a chance to experience the energy and spirit of Tokyo firsthand.
And Hanami, the cherry blossom viewing tradition, sounds magical.
Yeah, picnicking under the cherry blossoms.
I know, right?
Ah.
Imagine how beautiful that must be.
It's a celebration of the beauty of nature.
Yeah, and the fleeting nature of it, you know?
It's a reminder to cherish the present moment.
It really is. And then they talked about onsen, which are hot spring baths.
Oh, onsen are a big part of Japanese culture.
They said it's like a quintessential Japanese experience.
It's about relaxation, rejuvenation, and connecting with nature.
It sounded amazing. And they also highlighted omiyage, which is the custom of bringing back souvenirs or gifts.
Oh, that's thoughtful.
Yeah, it's a way of showing appreciation and sharing your travel experiences with others.
It's a lovely tradition.
It really is. And then, of course, they emphasized being respectful of local etiquette.
Oh, yeah, like not being loud in public and being on time.
Exactly. And even things like standing on the correct side of the escalator.
Interesting.
They said those little things can make a big difference
It shows respect for the local culture.
and ensures a more harmonious experience for everyone.
Definitely. It's all about being a mindful traveler.
Right. So to wrap up this first part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
what are your initial impressions of Tokyo so far?
It sounds like an incredible mix of modern and traditional.
It does, right?
Yeah, with something for everyone.
It really does. What's standing out to you the most?
Honestly, it's the food, the festivals, the temples, the technology.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but in a good way. Tokyo seems like a city that truly has it all.
It does. And we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, I can't wait to dive deeper.
Me too, there's so much more to explore.
Absolutely.
All right, well, stay tuned. We'll be back with more Tokyo adventures in just a bit.
Sounds good.
I'm excited to keep going. Makes you wonder what a normal day is like for someone living there.
Oh, totally.
Like, is it all go, go, go? Or do they find a balance with that peaceful side of Tokyo we were talking about?
Well, the podcast hosts mentioned that even though it's fast-paced, there's also a sense of order.
Oh, interesting.
Like, those train stations are so organized.
Yeah, it's amazing how they keep things running so smoothly.
And they said it feels like the whole city functions with a purpose.
Reminds me of what they said about those standing sushi bars and ramen shops.
Right, you just order from a vending machine.
Yeah.
Super efficient.
It's crazy. But it still feels like a very authentic local experience.
Yeah, they said it's a perfect example of tradition meeting efficiency.
Which kind of defines Tokyo, right?
Exactly.
They also had some great advice for travelers with dietary restrictions.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
They said learning a few key phrases in Japanese can be super helpful.
Smart.
Or even carrying cards that explain your needs.
Especially for allergies and stuff.
Right, because you don't want to risk anything.
Definitely.
They said that kind of preparation shows respect and can really make things smoother.
Makes sense.
One story that really stuck with me was the one about them being invited to a Hanami picnic.
Oh, by the locals.
Yeah, they were at Ueno Park, admiring the cherry blossoms.
Beautiful.
And this local couple just invited them to join their picnic.
Oh,
They were sharing homemade snacks and stories about Hanami traditions.
that's amazing.
It really shows the generosity and openness of the Japanese people.
It's so cool that they were willing to share their culture with complete strangers.
It just highlights that omotenashi we were talking about, you know.
Definitely.
And then there was that story about the spontaneous street performance in Harajuku.
Oh, yeah, they just stumbled upon it.
They said they were totally captivated by the energy of the dancers and the crowd.
Those kinds of experiences are what make travel so exciting.
Right. You can't plan for those moments.
It's all about being open to the unexpected.
Exactly. You know, this deep dive is really painting a picture of Tokyo for me.
Yeah, me too.
What about you? What's
Yeah.
resonating with you the most so far?
For me, it's how Tokyo challenges your expectations, you know?
Yeah, like how so?
Well, you have ancient temples next to futuristic skyscrapers, serene gardens in the middle of busy streets.
It's like a city of contrasts,
Exactly.
which makes it both fascinating and inspiring, right?
Absolutely.
And it's that uniqueness that draws people from all over the world,
I think so too.
whether they're into culture, food, technology, or just experiencing a different way of life.
It's a city that truly offers something for everyone.
It's amazing how they've managed to blend tradition and innovation so seamlessly.
It's not about choosing one or the other.
Right.
It's about finding a balance.
I think that's a really valuable lesson we can learn from Tokyo.
Agreed.
Like, it encourages us to think differently, to embrace complexity.
And to appreciate the beauty of those contrasts.
Totally. It's inspiring how much we can learn from a place and its people.
Yeah, as long as we're open to new experiences and perspectives.
It makes me think about what it would be like to spend more time in Tokyo.
Oh, yeah.
Not just as a tourist, but to really immerse myself in the culture.
That's when the real magic happens, I think.
Yeah, when you can go beyond the surface level and connect with the heart of a place.
Exactly.
But I also wonder about the challenges of living in such a fast-paced and densely populated city.
I bet it can be overwhelming at times.
How do people find balance and well-being amidst all that stimulation?
Well, the podcast hosts talked about the importance of finding those moments of peace.
Yeah, making time for yourself.
Whether it's through traditional practices like the tea ceremony or just spending time in nature.
It sounds like they're very aware of the need to counterbalance the energy of the city,
Definitely.
to find that harmony between the external and internal.
And it seems like Tokyo provides plenty of opportunities for both.
It does, right? And
Yeah.
it's a city that can be both exhilarating and calming at the same time.
Which is what makes it so captivating, I think.
It's a unique blend of experiences that really speaks to all aspects of what it means to be human. And it kind of pushes you out of your comfort zone in a good way.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, whether it's figuring out the trains or trying new foods or just, dealing with a different culture.
It makes you more adaptable.
It really does. So as we wrap up this Tokyo deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one thing that's sticking with you?
I think it's realizing that a city can be both a reflection of its past and a vision of the future.
That's a good one.
Like, Tokyo embraces its history, its traditions, it weaves them into its modern identity.
Yeah,
That balance is incredible.
I love that. And for me, it's that layered feeling, that sense of history and continuity, but also change.
It's not just a place, it's a feeling, right?
It is. It really is. It's like Tokyo is more than just a destination. It's like a whole vibe.
It's a vibe.
And it stays with you.
I bet.
Well, this whole deep dive has definitely made me want to go.
You got to experience it firsthand.
I'm ready to book a flight.
Do it. And remember, be open to the unexpected.
Always good advice.
Let Tokyo surprise you, challenge you. Yeah,
And inspire you.
I'm ready for it. Well, that's a wrap on our Tokyo deep dive.
So much fun.
I'm so glad we did this one. Until next time, happy travels, everyone. Ready to talk about your hobbies in English? We found some really great tips and phrases for you from a language learning podcast.
Yeah. And you know what's cool about it? This isn't just about memorizing a bunch of words. It's about giving you the tools to
To have a real conversation.
have natural conversations.
Yeah.
About things you're interested in.
Exactly. And the podcast is called Speaking Practice with Adam and Julia, and it's packed with practical advice. So
It is. And one of the things that really stood out to me was how they emphasize a really relaxed approach.
yeah,
Learning a language doesn't have to be intimidating. It can be fun.
it can be fun for sure. Okay, so let's dive right in. They start with these two core phrases that are so versatile. I spent my time, period, doing activity, and I practiced my skill.
And I think what's really brilliant about these phrases is they're like templates you can easily adapt to your own hobbies.
Yeah,
So instead of just saying I like to paint, you could say I spent my weekend painting a new landscape.
Huh.
It just sounds more natural, right?
totally. And it gives you a chance to slip in some details about what you actually do.
It's exactly.
But instead of I played guitar, you could say I spent a few hours practicing my guitar skills.
Yes, and it's like you're showcasing your passion a little bit more.
Yeah.
You're not just like, oh yeah, I play guitar. It's like, no, I really work on this.
Yeah, it shows dedication.
Yeah.
I love how they didn't just stop there, though. They also gave some really good tips on how to make your hobby conversations more interesting.
Right. They suggest using descriptive language, asking follow-up questions, sharing personal stories.
Yeah.
Going beyond just listing your hobbies.
Really connecting with the person.
Yeah.
Like they said, I love hiking because it allows me to explore nature and get some exercise.
Yeah, and that's so much more engaging than just saying, I like to hike.
Totally. To help you sound even more fluent, they introduce some key vocabulary words that are perfect for talking about hobbies. Words like pastime, enthusiast, passionate about, and to unwind.
Yeah, and using these words can really elevate your language. Instead of saying, I like reading,
Yeah.
you could say, reading is my favorite pastime,
Whoa.
or I'm a real book enthusiast.
I love that. Oh, okay. But, knowing the words is only half the battle, right? They also had a whole segment on pronunciation, which I thought was really helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Pronunciation is
Yeah.
key. And especially for words that learners often stumble over. So they break down tricky words like enthusiast syllable by syllable, which is such a useful technique.
It is. And here's where things get really interesting. They actually walk you through a real-world scenario of meeting someone new at a party and striking up a conversation about hobbies.
I love that because they don't just tell you what to say, they actually role play the conversation so you can hear how these phrases flow naturally.
Exactly. Like they start with, "Hi, nice to meet you," and then ease into, "What do you like to do in your free time?" It's such a classic conversation starter.
And they show you how to keep the ball rolling by asking those follow-up questions.
And being a good listener too, right?
Yes, which is so important.
It's not just about talking about yourself.
Absolutely.
And you know what I really liked? They encourage you to try different variations of the dialogue using different hobbies and interests.
Yeah, that's a great way to see how adaptable these phrases are.
It's like having this toolbox of phrases you can pull out whenever you need them.
I love that analogy, a toolbox.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of language learning, right? It's about building that toolbox and becoming more and more comfortable using the tools that you have.
So true.
Speaking of tools, let's get back to those pronunciation tips. They were pure gold.
They were. I agree.
They really zero in on those words that can be tricky for English learners, like enthusiast, and they make sure you understand exactly how to pronounce them correctly.
And, being able to pronounce words correctly, it's about more than just sounding good. It can actually boost your confidence
It really
and
can.
help you feel more comfortable speaking English overall.
Absolutely, because when you feel confident in your pronunciation, you're less likely to hesitate or feel self-conscious.
Exactly. You can just focus on expressing yourself.
And that brings us to another really important aspect of language learning that they touched on: active listening.
Oh, yes. Active listening is so important.
I was really intrigued by their explanation of it. It's not just about passively hearing words, it's about engaging with what the other person is saying and showing them that you're truly interested.
Absolutely. And that involves paying attention to both verbal and nonverbal cues, asking clarifying questions, responding in a way that shows you're following along.
And they had some fantastic tips for improving your active listening skills.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like paying attention to the speaker's tone of voice and body language, asking questions to clarify what they mean, summarizing their points to make sure you understand correctly,
All great tips.
avoiding distractions, focusing on the message.
It's amazing how much they packed into a single podcast episode. It's like a masterclass in talking about hobbies.
It really is.
But what really impressed me was how they emphasized that mistakes are a natural part of the learning process.
They did.
They really encourage listeners to embrace those mistakes and see them as opportunities to learn and grow.
Which is so refreshing to hear, especially for language learners who might feel discouraged by their mistakes.
Absolutely. It's about shifting your mindset from perfection to progress.
Exactly. So for anyone who wants to feel more confident talking about their hobbies in English, this is a fantastic starting point.
It is, and it's a reminder that learning a language can be fun and engaging.
Totally. Every small step you take brings you closer to fluency.
So true.
It's so true. And one thing that really stood out to me was their segment on dealing with those awkward silences.
Oh, yeah.
Those silences that can pop up in conversations.
Those dreaded silences.
They can be a little unnerving, especially when you're still getting comfortable speaking English.
They can be.
But Adam and Julia had some really good strategies for navigating them.
They did.
I was surprised by how simple but effective their suggestions were. Like they recommended having a few go-to phrases ready
Oh, yeah?
to fill those gaps.
Like what kind of phrases?
Things like, "That's interesting, tell me more," or "I've always wanted to try that, what's it like?"
Oh, that's good.
Just little lifesavers that can keep the conversation flowing.
Yeah. And you know what I appreciated? They also said it's okay to just pause,
Yes.
and think for a moment before responding.
Totally. We put so much pressure on ourselves to have the perfect answer right away.
We do.
But a little silence can actually be a good thing.
It can.
Yeah.
It gives you a chance to gather your thoughts and come up with a more thoughtful response.
Exactly. And it shows that you're actually listening.
Yes.
You're considering what the other person has said.
Right.
They also encourage listeners to not be afraid to ask for clarification.
Oh, for sure.
If they didn't understand something.
It's so much better to ask than to pretend you understand and then be totally lost.
Exactly. Something else that stood out to me was their advice on using body language.
Oh, yeah.
To your advantage.
Nonverbal communication is so powerful.
It is.
Like making eye contact, nodding your head, using appropriate facial expressions.
Even a simple smile
Yeah.
can convey so much.
It can make you seem more approachable.
More confident.
Yes, exactly.
I was also fascinated by their tips on how to sound more natural when speaking English.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point.
Because it's not just about knowing the right words and grammar.
Right.
It's about delivering them in a way that sounds authentic
Yeah.
and engaging.
So how do you do that?
Well, one of their suggestions was to practice shadowing.
Shadowing.
Yeah, it's basically mimicking the speech patterns and intonation of native
Oh,
speakers.
that's a good one.
So you're imitating the rhythm, the stress, the intonation.
It helps you internalize those patterns,
Yeah.
so you start to sound more natural.
They also recommended paying attention to the way native speakers use contractions and slang.
Oh, yeah. Slang can be tricky, though.
It can be. You have to be careful.
Make sure you understand the nuances.
Exactly. But when used correctly, it can definitely make you sound more like a native speaker.
For sure.
And you know what else? They stress the importance of not being afraid to experiment
Yes.
with your language,
Try out different expressions.
different phrases.
Find what works for you.
Exactly. The more you practice and experiment, the more comfortable you'll become.
So true.
Oh,
You know, this deep dive has been so insightful.
it has.
It's amazing how many practical tips we've uncovered from just one podcast episode.
I know. It's like they packed a whole language course into one episode.
I know, right? And what I appreciate most is how they make it fun.
They do. It doesn't feel like a boring lecture.
It feels like you're having a conversation with friends.
Exactly. And they're passionate about helping you learn.
Yeah, and you know, another thing that really resonated with me was their point about celebrating your progress,
Oh, yes.
no matter how small.
That's so important. It's easy to get caught up in what we're still struggling with.
Yeah, we focus on our mistakes.
But it's crucial to acknowledge how far we've come.
It is. Every time you learn a new word
Right.
or you successfully navigate a conversation, that's a victory.
Exactly. Celebrate those wins.
Give yourself credit.
And you know what? Even just listening to this deep dive
Yes,
is a step in the right direction.
absolutely. You're actively engaging with language learning.
You're expanding your knowledge.
That's something to be proud of.
Now, I know we've covered a lot already, but there's one more aspect of the podcast that I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
Their segment on cultural awareness was really insightful.
Oh, yeah. Cultural awareness is so important when you're learning a new language
It is especially English.
because it's spoken in so many different countries.
Exactly.
And each country has its own unique culture.
They emphasize that language isn't just about words and grammar.
Right.
It's also about understanding the customs, the values, the social norms.
Of the people who speak it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like certain gestures or expressions might be considered rude in one culture.
Yeah, but totally fine in another.
I was fascinated by their example of how humor can vary across cultures.
Oh, yeah. Humor can be tricky.
It can. What might be considered funny in one
It
country,
can be totally offensive in another.
or just not funny at all.
Yeah, exactly. And they made a good point that being culturally aware isn't just about avoiding faux pas.
It's about building connections, fostering deeper relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you show cultural sensitivity, you're showing respect,
And that can build trust.
for sure.
Yeah.
And they had some great advice on how to develop your cultural awareness,
Oh, yeah, like what?
like watching movies and TV shows from different English-speaking countries.
Oh, that's a fun one.
It is. It's a great way to get a glimpse into different cultures.
And pick up on nuances of language and humor.
They also suggested reading books and articles about different cultures,
Yes, immersing yourself in those communities.
whether online or in person.
You know, one of the things that struck me about this podcast is how it goes beyond just teaching language skills.
It does.
It's also about fostering empathy,
Yes.
encouraging open-mindedness.
That's a beautiful observation.
It's about connecting with others,
Bridging cultural divide.
building bridges of understanding.
And this deep dive has been a wonderful reminder of that.
It has.
It's shown us how language can be a powerful tool
For communication,
for connection
for expanding our horizons.
and for enriching our lives.
It's amazing, isn't it, how much we can learn from just one podcast episode.
It really is. They pack so much in there.
Adam and Julia's approach is so refreshing. You know, they make language learning feel
Accessible.
fun.
Yeah, not intimidating at all.
Thinking back to everything we talked about, I'm struck by how much they emphasize the why behind language learning.
It's not just about the mechanics.
Right. It's about the doors that it opens.
Exactly. Like connecting with people from different cultures,
Exploring new ideas.
traveling with confidence.
All those things make the effort so worthwhile.
They do.
So for anyone listening who wants to talk about their hobbies in English, we've given you a really solid foundation.
We have. Remember, practice is key.
It is. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Embrace those mistakes. They're opportunities to learn.
Exactly. So what about you? What hobby have you always been curious about but haven't tried yet?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Maybe this deep dive is the nudge you needed to finally give it a shot.
It could be. You know, think about how you could use these phrases to express your interest.
That's it for this deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you feel inspired to go out there and start talking about your hobbies in English.
And remember, have fun with it.
We'll catch you next time.